Let's flow. Let's connect and flow. Welcome. Welcome in. Right, hold on just 1 second. We're syncing up here. And there we go. So here we are. Welcome to the shift. The space is created with special intention, special care, and lived experiences. Today, we are stepping into the universal law of opulence, not as money, not as material gain, but as cultivating energy. Opulence is richness woven in within us. It's the liberal movement of energy attracting itself to more of itself, supplying each of us with the affluence of creative power. It is the energetic plenty that allows form to be manifested from within. So let us deep dive into the understanding that it has been the understanding of, well, let us dive into the misunderstanding that it's had for generations. When most people hear the word opulence, they think of wealth or riches or luxury or affluence or excess. They imagine money and property and status, visible success. There's nothing wrong with that. And while material wealth can be an expression of opulence, it's not the definition of it. I found that opulence isn't about luxury. It's not excess. Opulence is not about display. I found out that opulence is fullness. It's the richness thereof from inside out. As Henry Thoreau once wrote, wealth is the ability to fully experience life. Go look it up. The Universal Law of Opulence, it taught me that abundance begins as a mode of thought. It taught me to cultivate my awareness that life itself is rich and it's layered and responsive. And it didn't happen right off the bat. It is discipline of perceiving sufficiency before I could see its overflow. It's choosing to recognize the richness that already exists within and around me. Waking up every morning being thankful for everything around me. Opulence is consciousness of integrated wealth. Everything from the pictures behind me are richness. It also includes emotional stability and intellectual depth, spiritual clarity, the relationship in your health and creativity and time and your vitality and your peace. For some, it's money, but without money, or let's put it this way, without peace, how do you feel with money? True opulence is the wholeness of the expression outwardly. At least that's what I found. It's not how great I have or how little I had. It's just being grateful for what I had in that moment. Opulence is not endless savings. It's sufficiency being anchored in the wisdom of what you already have so that you can grow to more. Some call this energy and some call it divine blessings and some might call it faith. And I know some call it psychology. Some call it the universal law. But however you label it, right? However you label it, the principle, it's the same. It remains. What you constantly cultivate internally becomes the lens that you see your life through. Life always begins through your lens, from within, without. You may not be aware of it, and most of us aren't. We're taught by elders, we're taught by social media, we're taught even before social media was a thing, we're taught by the influences of other people living life. And as you might want to call it, downloading that information. Never discerning it, just using it, judging it, and it's on a pre-recorded cycle, right? Why? Because it's always been that way, right? I remember my mom saying, this is one of the proverbs that I think I learned also in Sunday school, and my mom would say it because I think she was tapping in to not just the law of opulence, but all the universal laws. But there wasn't terminology back then for that. But the scripture is Proverbs. I think it's something like, 23:6 or 23:7. Go look it up. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So the thought has to come first from within you, and then it manifests outwardly. Opulence is participatory. I finally learned that I had to participate in it. It was operational, but one day I just had to wake up to it and go, whoa, okay, right? I realized opulence isn't passive. We were told maybe that it's fantasiful, right? You can fantasize about it, but we were never taught about it being that something had to be in alignment from the inside out, right? That opulence is alignment between the inner self and the outer action, what we create. We're taught to just blame life for being willy-nilly. Am I blowing your mind yet? Mine was blown, because this was never one of the universal laws that I learned. I learned the 7 universal laws. When this one dropped down in my lap during a meditation, several meditations about it, it was like, oh, it's so different than what I think about being rich or being wealthy or being secure. And I use the air quotes because everybody's got a different agenda for that, or a different, not agenda, but definition for it. The law of opulence is participatory. You have to participate. It's not passive, wishful thinking, pie in the sky thinking. It's not fantasy. It is alignment between your inner posture and your outer action. Fullness, the fullness of opulence is not just an idea. For me, I found it was a felt experience. It was a lived experience. I'm not saying that it's easy to get to and willy-nilly. I had to work for it. I had to work through it. I had to surrender to it. Fullness in the body often feels steady. Breath in the body feels slower. The shoulders began for me not to clench so much. My shoulders used to be up here when I walked around. I thought that was normal. Right? My jaws used to be clenched in the back. I thought that was normal. I had migraine headaches all the time. Sometimes I would pass out from them in my 30s. You know, and I would rush to either judgment or deliberate action without discerning, and it would be a conglomeration of just nothing going right, and life is out to really fuck with me. Until I found there was a space between stimulus and response. Till I found that there was a space that I didn't have to scramble, that I could take a pause and choose. Scarcity, on the other hand, shows up in it would show up in my nervous system before shit ever showed up or didn't show up in my bank account. And the scarcity would feel like tightness in my chest. Sometimes I was at a shortness of breath, or feeling restless, or feeling impatient. I would feel urgency even before my check hit my bank. Right? Sometimes I would even be frantic if the check wasn't going to hit at the right time, because I kept looking at the account trying to see so that I could write my rent check, so that me and my kids could have a roof over my head. My breath was shorter and restless and impatient. And it's some months I would have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul so that I could get to have enough to tie me over to the next paycheck. Or sometimes there was not enough time in my day to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. And then I would be forcing myself to do overtime, which took away time for my children. Because if I didn't do the overtime, I was going to constantly think about not having enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. I can't afford this. I'll never catch up. Scarcity contracts the body. It narrows my perception. It did. And I was easy to react. But I began to operate in this law of opulence. The fullness of opulence began to expand my body. It began to widen my perception, my vision of things. And it slowed my reaction. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because my ego still wants to react. And sometimes my higher self will give my ego a moment to react, just so it can show my egoic self what the difference is in discernment and reaction. Because my egoic self is energy. It's learning how to become. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. You may not agree. It's all right. External circumstances may not immediately change. I know mine didn't. But I did notice little nuances. And I noticed slowed reaction time that gave me a time enough to have well, what if I could do this? And as soon as I said that, the universe was opening up what if you do this? Let's bring that into, let's bring that into play. I'm not saying it always happened that way, but the law of opulence started to show itself. Right? External circumstances may not immediately change, but the internal posture shifts first. And sometimes you might not feel it, but you kind of feel, ooh, I feel a little different. Or I feel like I handled that a little bit different. Let's remember that language reveals posture. When someone constantly says, I'm broke, or constantly says, I'm stuck, or says, nothing ever works for me, they're positioning themselves. Your egoic system has no other recourse but to fall in line. And if it's fell in line before, it's quick to do that. Your nervous system has no recourse but to fall in line and receive those messages and give you how your body should feel accordingly. Words are not decorations. Words are direction. Your language trains your body. Your body falls in line with your language, what you're telling yourself about you. And your body says, okay. Your body influences your decisions. Who knew? That I did not know, that my body influences my decisions. My decisions shape my outcomes. I'm responsible. Whoa. Right? Whoa. Opulence begins long before overflow appears. It's always been there. All the universal laws have. It begins in the way you breathe. When you wake up and breathe in the morning, when you wake up and the first words out of your mouth, opulence is energy waiting to create for you. It'll create an abundance of disarray or discord, or it'll create an abundance of prosperity and joy and peace and happiness and whatever. Opulence begins long before your overflow appears. It's just like you've heard people say, oh, well, there's a lot of people he sees the glass half full. I see it half empty. And then there are some people that always see the glass overflowing. It can begin in the way you breathe, the way you speak, the way you interpret the sun in the morning. I used to have a person that I would always say, oh, it's such a beautiful day. The sun is shining. And they would be focused on one cloud in the sky. Nope. Look at that cloud over there. It's going to start moving. We're going to have a few gray moments. Very close to me. That always. But that was them. Fullness, the fullness of opulence is not in denial. It's steady. It's steadiness. It's there. Scarcity is not always about lack of money. It's often about lack of control. I found that when I started to cultivate my clarity and becoming responsible and intentional about my action, my nervous system began to take on the presence of calm. I began to make better decisions instead of retaliating or making decisions that were not right for me or my family based on my past reactions. I'm not going to say life. I'm not going to say I did it and it was perfect. No, that's growth and experience. Some shit I just had to go through. Right? And I will tell you that there was a season of my life that I'm going to share some scarcity with you. And I didn't feel philosophical. It felt very practical to me. And it felt very real. It felt I was very, the responsibility weighted down on my shoulders being a single mom. So everybody knows I've been married. I was, my ex walked out. And later on, after a while, after him being a spouse out the home for a while, divorce finally worked out and everything. And I was truly a single mother of 3, being both mom and dad, and operating on one income. That was reality. So when year-end school shopping came along, the seasonal thing, and it would always come around, instead of feeling excited at first, the weight was on my shoulders. How am I going to make this happen? I would feel the pressure before we would even think about where we were going to go get clothes, whether we're going to get the school supplies, all of that. Just thinking about it was this for me. Even while I was at work, I would take that to work. So don't get it wrong. It goes wherever you go. And if I carry it into my work, it's not saying, oh, this is only about me having to take care of the kids and blah. No, I take it into my job and it transfers to my worksheets. It transfers to the people that I'm working with. Sometimes people weren't trying to be, belligerent or unkind or whatnot, but it was just the way I was reading it. Right? I would feel the pressure before I even walked into the store. I was calculating. I was already bracing. My internal dialogue wasn't, what do my children truly need? It was, how can I stretch this? How can I make this work? How many items can I get for this amount of money for 3 kids? Right? Or it was just, I can't afford this. I didn't realize at the time that I was living in quantity over quality. I was trying to get as much bang for my buck and still make everything work out, because I still had to feed them. Still had to put gas in the car, still had to make a car payment, still had to make rent payment, still had to. Right? My children, I say they're the greatest thing since sliced bread for me. Because I mean, they would be along with me trying to work things out. You know, my thing was, guys, before my paycheck, and I would cry about this, before I get paid, they'd have all the sales. By the time I get paid, the sales were done. Everything was full price. But my kids, they would go around and they would say, Mom, there's got to be some sale racks. Even if they wanted, those shoes over there, they would stare at them and they look at them. Or they want a shirt or, whatnot. But they were working it. I didn't know that I had moved into that internal posture of measuring, embracing, and calculating. And the more the same financial pressure seemed to repeat itself, the more I just, it showed up in my language. Scarcity is not always about what you have. It's often about how you approach what you have. You look at what you have all around you and you're not happy and you're not satisfied because we're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Why? Because that's what society has, put out there. Commercials and at that particular time, newspapers. And yes, you could cut the coupons, but you had to buy 2 of something that you didn't really need. Right? But I began to learn about the law of cause and effect. And as I began to learn about the law of cause and effect, something started to shift in me. I started noticing my fear-based decisions were creating fear-based experiences. And those experiences were uncomfortable, but not just for me, guys, for my family and for the people around me. But as things started to shift, I started to question my language. I began to look at my posture of how I interacted with life. I began to question whether I was strengthening my foundation or I was continuously bracing for lack. I started noticing that. And slowly, I'm going to tell you slowly, as slow as a turtle crawls, I started to make different choices. Instead of choosing quantity, I would go ahead and, go tell my kids, go pick it out. Remember, you're going to have to keep it nice. It's got to last you to the next time we can do some more shopping, and then we'll get something else. So pick those shoes that go with a couple of outfits that, you already have, and then we'll add a shirt to that. And everybody got something. Still, it was about the kids. I wasn't paying myself. It would be years before I really bought myself a new dress or something like that or whatnot. So I wasn't being reckless, and I wasn't being irresponsible. But my kids, they were, say, okay, we can get this, Mom. And look, Mom, this may not have been the full sale like it was last week, but they've got it, they've got, 5% off. And if we get this, then we can buy you know, my older son would say we could buy, his brother this and, get 50% off. And then he goes looking for things for his sister with his sister, you know. So, uh, I would choose things that mattered for them. We go after we do shopping, we'd stop and we'd eat at a restaurant. And I remember we would get like a big meal and two big meals, and they would be doing the splitting. Okay, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this. And then they would get a big cup of soda or whatnot, and then they'd ask the waitress, can we have some small glasses? And my older son would divvy it up and then give me the cup back and say, okay, here's some for you, Mom. That's opulence. That's the law of opulence. My children were doing that. That's how I was learning. And my daughter, towards the end of her preteenhood, said, Mom, you got to pay. You got to pay yourself. You need to start getting you something. And my kids, they would go, okay, when we go clothes shopping, you get something too. Right? And they'd save their money that they would get, their little monthly money that they would save, and I didn't make them, I just give them, and they'd save it. And that way they would have their own money in their pocket, and it would be for if they wanted books to read, or, my youngest was into video games, and, they would save. They were naturally doing the law of opulence. What happened, blew my mind, is I naturally stopped fearing and I started becoming stable in allowing. My children began to mirror the shift. The more they became intentional, the more I became grateful. The more they became aware, the more I became part of the awareness. They helped me stay aligned. They helped me upgrade my mindset. They helped my growth and my expansion. It took a while, but I eventually began to shop without being in panic mode. That was my earliest lesson in opulence. Opulence was not me suddenly having an excess of money. It was me refusing to let fear dictate every decision I made. It was me choosing to steady my course instead of scrambling. Quality over anxious accumulation. It was about living in the fullness of the motion and enjoying that opportunity to go out shopping with my kids and actually see the happiness that they had. I mean, my kids would go to the grocery store and see my list, and they would, of course, they had these memories, and all my kids would take off in different directions. And all you could do was hear my mouth going, so and so, come here, so and so, come here. And at that particular time, people knew my kids. The salespeople knew my kids, and they kept an eye out. And my youngest would come back with handfuls of stuff, and he'd say, and he'd put it in the cart, and he would cross it off, and he would say, all this stuff, Mom, it was on sale, plus you have a coupon. Right? Because what my kids did was they split the coupons up. And my youngest, he kept up with his brothers and sisters. They would give him stuff that they knew was on the lower level shelves and stuff. And they'd all be bringing stuff back to the cart. And literally, the law of opulence would be working. We come out with the coupons and with, the sale and everything. And hey, sometimes that would say, do you want to go to McDonald's? Because there would be cash left. And we spent so much time going to the grocery store and doing laundry and all that. They deserved a little treat. McDonald's wasn't an all the time thing, but yeah. But even when they were at McDonald's, they would look at the different menu, right? I stopped bracing for movement in life. And I started allowing to watch my kids help me build opulence. And I didn't know that was the title of it then. Right? Opulence begins the moment that you notice your posture and your choice or your choices that you begin to use gently and intentionally. And you can see the flow of the upgrade. Opulence circulates. It does not stagnate. Let's talk about opulence for employees, right? Opulence can look like choosing to operate with excellence, even before a promotion is mentioned. Not because you're being watched, because you are building character. You're building skill. That's opulence. It looks like expanding your knowledge beyond your current job. Beyond the current job description in small, intentional ways, just because you could. Being reliable and consistent, growth-minded, so that when opportunities do arise, your name is the first name that is uttered. That's opulence. For me, opulence in the workplace did not begin with a title change. It began with a mind shift. I told you guys in the last couple of episodes that I did not have the nicest supervisor manager. So I was the one that had to shift. But I had to do it for me, not to prove her wrong. There was a time when I realized that it was okay to build myself from ground up. It was okay to change me. And sometimes no one was going to hand me the information I needed. I was going to have to listen and see and hear and be attuned to growth. That it was okay for me to listen. It was okay for me to observe. It was okay for me to learn. That's the law of opulence. In meetings, I began to pay attention. I listened consistently when leaders spoke. I noticed when decisions were made and actually watched the applications of how they were made. I listened to the different type of language that they were using, because I was in a lot of boardrooms with my accounting, with some really good accounting managers. And then, of course, with the one that, kind of, you know, but I even learned from her what not to do. I learned about strategies, how to observe what elevated people and what limited them. It's the law of opulence. I had to learn to not always feel intimidated. Instead of moving in judgment, I had to listen and be a team player and excited for people when they were getting promotions instead of, what about me? Well, I get to say, how could I get that if that's really what I want? I begin to ask myself different questions. What can I learn from this? What do I need to develop within myself to grow and expand like that in this business? Do I even want to grow and expand in this company? I had to learn to stop measuring myself against others and start measuring myself against my own potential from the day before. Opulence for me as an employee became the willingness to the excess information that was being willing to be available to the excess information that was being it was just out there. It wasn't being directed towards me, but it was surely out there. And I could go take that information in and utilize it for my highest and greatest good. But I had to ask those questions. What's for my highest and greatest good here? I began to understand that I could not control other people's ability to be not promoted or promoted. That wasn't my job. I couldn't create that or not create it for somebody. I couldn't change that. But I could absolutely control how I could prepare myself for the chance to be promoted in the company. And think about, well, wow, if I got promoted in that department, I could do X, Y, and Z with a rate increase. See it, feel it, be it. When you choose to grow without resentment, I found, when you choose to build without bitterness, when you choose to observe and elevate yourself without judgment, you are operating in the law of opulence. Because scarcity is the one that competes. Opulence just develops you. Scarcity says, why them, not me? Opulence asks, how can I be ready when it's my turn? And I know this is very hard for people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Been there, done that. Opulence does not mean pretending that financial pressure does not exist. Your egoic system will let you know that shit ain't so. What opulence means is refusing to let financial pressure define your identity. It's still real. It can begin with choosing to track what comes in and what goes out. I had to do that. I did not, because I was learning the law of attraction, I did not want to use the words budget. But you know what the reality is? I had to know what I was making, what was coming in, what I was spending, what was going out, and not judge myself for it. That's a little caveat there. Not feel so anxious about it. So I had to have some clarity about what's going in and what's coming out. Clarity began to soften my fear. I'm not saying fear don't always go away. But it don't rear its ugly head as much as it used to in the past. Because I used to be guessing at everything. Clarity just softens the fear with awareness. I used to have a friend who's always saving for a rainy day. And she wants to go places and do things, and she has big dreams, but she won't take what she's saving for that rainy day and enjoy life. And she asked me, well, how do you do what you do? Well, for me, I didn't tell her this, but for me, my words are creating my existence. So if I'm saving for a rainy day, that means that I'm always saving because I expect negative shit to happen. Therefore, the universe says, let it be so. Right? And it's not a bad thing to set aside $20 for something that you intentionally want to do. That's personal stability. But not because you expect things to go wrong, but because you feel you have a value of feeling that saving is steady, that if something does, you have it. I had a friend who said to me, I'm so happy that I have a car, even though she had to spend $400 to have her car repaired. And then she said to me, and I'm so happy that I had that money saved. She didn't say something like, oh, I got to start all over again. She was saying that she was happy. She wasn't preparing for a disaster, but when she needed to repair a car, she had it. The law, when you're working through in and allowing the law of opulence to vibrate and be part of your life experiences, you are strengthening your foundation. The spirit behind the action matters. If you're always bracing for impact, like I was in my, early single parenthood, impact is always going to happen. That's what's going to be Fortifying life is more impact. External behavior may look the same, but the internal posture through the law of opulence will change. So let's talk about the law of opulence for entrepreneurs. Opulence looks like building value that serves beyond immediate profit. They look at their investment systems, their reputation, their integrity, their long-term sustainability rather than chasing short-term gain. That's what they could be doing through the law of opulence. Understanding that influence, trust, and stewardship are forms of wealth as well, not just money. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Let's talk about the law of opulence for parents or married people or single people. Opulence may look like emotional generosity, stability, resourcefulness, being intentional in building a legacy, even under pressure. Opulence is creating an environment of safety and growth for yourself and those around you, even if the material resources are modest. Opulence is not the absence of pressure. It is the refusal to let the pressure or the preference of pressure dictate your future. The universal law of opulence reminds us that abundance flows in proportion to our capability or capacity. What's yours? Our capacity could be to perceive or to receive or to circulate or to be a good steward and be responsible for others. Opulence is not about what you have or don't have. It's about how fully you are operating in what you have or while you don't have something. When you cultivate fullness in thought, and remember, the soul does not jump onto a shelf while you go to work. It's there learning through the law of opulence about you. So when you cultivate fullness in thought, in action, in stewardship, overflow becomes a natural extension of who you are becoming. This, I know for me, became the shift from scarcity to sufficiency. I'm not going to say I have everything I want right now, but I can say that I can put it on my list and then know that opulence through a desired outcome is possible. From bracing to building, from fear to a foundation, to me, let's put it this way, to me, that's opulence in motion. That's energy, creating more energy. It's seeking itself to become. So as I look at the time, 5:25 p.m., and we close today, I want you to remember this. Opulence isn't about something you chase. It's something you cultivate. It's something that lives within you as energy, as richness, as creative supply within you, waiting to be directed, waiting to be your next opera of life. Be activated to create from that inner wealth that's already within you. Be grounded in the truth that you already have the resources. You do. Be responsible for what you're cultivating, because what you nurture energetically will eventually take form. And as you sit with that today, ask yourself, what will you steward? What will I steward? What will I build? What legacy will I cultivate energetically and leave behind? So as I close, I want to say that until we embark on our next episode, which possibly might be the final episode, that's up to the creator. We'll see. We're going to move beyond laws and into embodiment. We're going to learn about responsibility and stewardship and how the power of legacy in action is for us. So until then, I want you to continue to shift, continue to evolve. Allow yourself to cultivate the law of opulence within you. It's there, waiting for you to dig in and give it some options to do things, to create. It's ready to move through you. It's ready for your intention. So with this, I say wholeness and balanced, or wholeness and unconditional balanced love to you and yours, right? Go out and be that unconditional you, that authentic you want to be, and then share it with the world. And I will see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on YouTube and Facebook. And this will be streaming in a day or two on my Spotify at Soul Awakening with Sandra. You will also see it being shared or as a collaboration with Sacred Light Broadcast and Network as a replay. So head over there if you've missed one. So many places to find me. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you're just waking up down in the down under, enjoy your day. Peace, unconditional love, and joy to you and yours.